Hi, I'm Shannon Gascoigne. I'm a community representative on the Joint Facilities Advisory Committee.
I'm Brian Coogan. I'm also a citizen representative of the committee. And we wanted to come here to take the community through a tour of these facilities. Shannon, like myself, are both transplants to the area, and one of the main reasons why we chose to live here in Amherst were the beautiful community that's here, but also the community that's specifically here at the schools. And one of the things that was startling to me over the last 2 years as my children began to get into the schools was that the lack of space. And there was a meeting held probably almost 2 years ago now, or 2.5 years ago now, where we were talking about not having enough space to support our children, and they were shipping them out of town. So we became active with this engagement to try to help learn more about what's happening here in the community, and now we're trying to educate people about what we've observed in the last couple of years.
And I think really taking a little walk through the buildings is the best way to help residents understand the issues that we're trying to help solve as a committee.
And we walked these facilities, Shannon, much more than I, but when we took a tour about 1.5 years ago, it became quite evident to us the state of affairs here in the lower elementary school and the middle school, and some of the needs that we have. And we felt that by walking the hallways was probably the best way to be educated and be aware of what's here. We recognize not everyone can walk the hallways, although everyone's invited to come. The school has opened their doors to welcome and educate people, but we figured this would be a great way to help bring some of that to your doorstep.
Great, so while we're not going to take you through every room and every hallway today, we will show you some of the things that we're facing in SAU 39 at Wilkins Elementary School and AMS, and we hope you find it useful. So now we're in the multi-purpose room at Wilkins Elementary School. This space, right now it's empty and it looks really large. But what's important to note, and I think we have some photos we can lay over here, this room during the day is used for lunch, and this curtain is closed. So we're actually only able to utilize half of this room for lunch. So 160 kids, that's the largest class we have at Wilkins right now, would be on this side of the curtain. On the other side of the curtain, they're having a gym class. So another class full of children. So our awesome gym teacher is trying to keep kids engaged, keep them active, keep them moving, teach them, the physical education curriculum, while the 160 kids on this side of the room are trying to get through their 25-minute lunch period and eat. So it's very cramped. Our administrators have done a nice job trying to make the most of how they use the space this year, but the challenge is very real. If this room could be used just as a cafeteria, there would be plenty of space. But right now it's pulling double duty. So now we're in a second grade classroom. This room used to be where we had computer and technology class. So I wanted you to note where we're lacking outlets at our middle school, there are numerous outlets in here, and when this room is utilized in the way it was intended, that makes sense. But now, because we do not have space, our computer teacher is on a cart, and this is a second grade classroom. Can you hear me?
It's a little loud in here. I'm just trying to. Do you know what this box is over in the corner?
Right. So I don't know if you can hear it on the video, but it is very loud, and this is the server room.
Okay.
So when this needed to be converted into a classroom, and the hope I think was that this would be temporary, they threw this up just to kind of close it off, and thought, we'll get through this bump of a year, make this a classroom, and now here we are. It is a classroom. It is very warm in here, so you'll see there's an air conditioning unit.
Oh no, there's two. There's two air.
Yeah.
Most of our rooms have no air conditioning, yet this one has two.
This one has two, and it's because of this. So, again, it's a I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold situation. We have to turn those on to keep this going. I have spoken with folks who've worked in this room, and it's loud. And when you turn the splits on in the summer, when you really have to run it to keep this from getting overheated, you can imagine
Yeah, I couldn't
how loud
imagine. I
that
mean,
is.
if you have one of those window radiator rattle shakers at your house in the summer months, and you get to turn the volume on the TV way up, if you bring kids in here with 2 mini splits going and all the servers, I don't know how they converse and hear their teachers.
Right. And you know that the outlets on the walls, you know, it's a second grade classroom. You hope the kids don't get interested in the outlets, but there are some challenges to the space that make it, you know, not ideal for a second grade classroom.
So now we're in a multi-purpose room here at Wilkins, which requires special education, speech pathology, reading specialists.
Yep.
Anything else I missed?
No, there's 2 special
Two
educators
special
in here.
educators.
A reading specialist and speech pathologist, and again in a room that at once upon a time was a classroom. So now we have another classroom that we're using for services that our students need.
I think that's a dynamic challenge here. You know, we're strapped for space, so we're taking 3 or 4 different disciplines, compartmentalizing it into one regional location, and I find it uniquely challenging for someone, particularly that's dealing with speech pathology, to be here with a specialist, getting the support they need, but being asked to be quiet because they don't want to disturb the 15, 20 other students that may be in this room at the same time receiving special services. And how do you provide an adequate education for somebody with speech pathology, but in a soft tone? It's really challenging. We're putting our children potentially at a disadvantage for the lack of space and adequate resources that we may need.
Right, yeah, and we have some of the best educators in the state, and we're asking them to work in conditions that aren't, you know, conducive to doing their best work. So I think we're really lucky to have the folks here that we have, and it's unfortunate that we're not able to really provide them. I mean, that's why we're doing the work we're doing on the committee, right? How do we solve this? Because here's the challenge: is as enrollments grow, these are spaces that, so now there's 4 professionals in here. Next year there could be 6 if another space is needed for a classroom. Like that's the point. That's where we are. So now we're at in the 1st grade hallway at Wilkins Elementary School. I'm pretty sure when this building was built, this was a closet. But to illustrate how the building and the folks here are utilizing every inch of space that we have, this is currently the office of the school psychologist. So while she's not in here all day, this is her office space. It's where she may meet with students or parents if there's no other meeting space available. And again, it really, Brian, just kind of illustrates that we're using every square inch of space.
Yeah, if you look at this
available.
particular room, I mean, you've got a room that's maybe 6 feet by 6 feet, and there's no window here. And this is where we're asking people to perform psychology. It just seems somewhat ironic.
So now we're in the music room, which we're really happy to have back, right? Because
Last year, music was on a cart. We pushed it around the halls.
Yep. And that was because of fire. I'm sure everyone would recall that in 2018, there was a fire in one of the portable buildings, and it was out of commission for the year. So Mr. Allwarden was on a cart pushing around into classrooms. And if you look around, like you see all kinds of great instruments. It's a really vibrant music program that we have at Clark Wilkins. It doesn't translate well to a cart for a number of reasons. I'm pretty sure last year most of this was stored on the stage, and then he would have to carry it into a classroom. When you're in the next door classroom and this is going on, it definitely impacts learning. It impacts his ability. He does a great job, but it's just not the most effective way to teach music.
Yeah, what I find interesting is the music's supposed to be fun. It's connected to entertainment and theater. This was a great prop, right? How on earth could you put something like this on a cart?
Right.
So when you lack this adequate space to provide, creativity, to let a child's mind expand and really grow, these types of creative arts put together that experience. But when you cheapen that experience by placing these faculties on a cart, it really cheapens the experience for our students.
Absolutely. So now we're in the occupational therapy room at Wilkins Elementary School, which at one point in time this room would have been a classroom, but not today. Today this is used, as you can see, it's a large space that we use to provide services to students who need them.
Yeah, and they've been permanently retrofitted to provide occupational therapy for for our students. And we actually have 3 different rooms like this here at Wilkins that when the building was originally designed and built, these types of services weren't generally offered or were not required by law. And as the educational systems has evolved over time, these 3 classrooms have now been taken out of the general population for regular classroom space to provide the services that our community needs, which is partly why we built some of the additional space out on the other side of the building. It's also partly why we still continue to use portable units throughout this community.
These portable buildings have been here for roughly 15 years.
Maybe more, yeah.
In 2018, we had one catch fire, and then again this fall there was a smoke incident in a portable. So these portables are definitely, I would say it's very fair to say they're end of life.
Yeah, every portable unit has a different lifespan depending on the quality of the craftsmanship and the cost of which your upfront cost of buying it, installing it. They don't typically do well in the Northeast because of the environment that we have here, the amount of snow and weather changes. We use the phrase portable. I won't call them what they are. They're double wide trailers, which is where we're occupying our students. And I mean, from a space perspective, it's adequate. There's lighting, but this is a detached unit. This is detached from the main building, which lacks some of the primary security features that you would have in the main facility. So there's obviously concern with that. I've heard and I've read studies on the sociological impacts or the psychological impacts that it has both on the faculty who teach in these facilities as well as the students who learn in these facilities, and that they feel like they're segregated from the rest of the community by being placed here.
But I will say, this is my favorite room in all of Amherst.
Yes.
This is what we've talked a lot about multi-purpose rooms. This might be the highest level of multi-purpose that we've found.
Yeah, so I want to point out to folks watching, each portable building that we have contains 2 classrooms. So 2 portable buildings, we have 4 classrooms. And they're not optimal, but we desperately still need them because we need those 4 classrooms. What's interesting about the multi-purpose section of this room is that we're in a classroom now. In the middle is a bathroom, so this is where kids go. And on the other side of the door, there's a classroom. So that's the first thing that strikes me. I'm a 10-year-old kid. You go to the restroom, I get up from my classmates, close one door, go make sure the other door's locked because my other classmates are on the other side, right outside the door. And then I come into this space.
Come on, this
Yeah.
is fun. Go ahead.
Now there's a fan going, which is good, you need that. So it's a little loud. But you'll note that there's a printer. There's a hot water heater.
There's cleaning supplies
There's cleaning
underneath.
supplies. There's a vacuum.
Oh, don't forget the desk that we have for the
There's a
students.
desk.
In case they need to use that.
There's a lot going on, and so I asked the obvious question when I took a tour of this space recently. Well, why is the printer here? Let's just move it. Well, this is where the network port is at. I don't know why. That's probably a whole other conversation, but this is where we are. The other thing that I'd like to note, so we'll just pass through and see the other classroom. You'll note at the front of the classroom, bins. There's nowhere for the students to store any of their gear during the day. So their backpacks, their coats, their boots. We can't leave them on the floor. They can't be near the doors because of fire codes and regulations. So the solution is they dump them all in these bins together during the school day.
And they have to traverse from this facility to the main facility for all of their special services,
Yep.
their
Lunch.
music, their art, their lunch. So they're traversing between the building, getting dressed, going into the building, getting undressed. And last year when we lost one of the units, that's unfortunately where we lost the music room. We talked a lot about the music room earlier, where it's a great facility for the students. We're at risk for losing them again next year. As the class sizes are ebbing and flowing, one of the first rooms that we're going to lose is music, and it's very likely that we could lose that room once again.
Right, yeah, so that's definitely a place that could be considered. I think also the intervention space, so our reading interventionist, our math interventionist, who serve all of our students, right? they're already compressed with 4 in a room. If we need another classroom, occupational therapy, that's not going away. That's not a classroom that we can use. My Time Stars program, not a classroom we can use. So when the administration has to make decisions about pulling people out, it's those services that really serve all of the students that we risk losing. And now we're in the library at Amherst Middle School. And what strikes me when I first walk in the building is, in this room, is the furniture. I'm pretty sure this furniture is original to when the building was constructed. What do you notice about this room?
Well, when I walk in here, this to me is a facility that's housing books. It's all the books that our kids read, but when I look more closely at the facility, it's really about the state of it. And the water damage that I see on the roof line, and we can actually point some out for you. Up here, in this area, over here above this gate here, up along the column line, this is about 20 square feet, and there's water damage everywhere. If you were to walk and traverse this entire library, you'd see water damage all over. And what's shocking is that most of these tiles have been replaced in the past year because there was much worse water damage last year. The last time I was in this building, there were garbage barrels collecting water from the leaking ceilings in the same spaces where our students read books.
Yeah, my understanding in talking with folks in the building is that's not an uncommon occurrence. It's not a one-off. It's every time there's a heavy rain or a heavy snowmelt. And so now we're entering down into the original part of the building. This is a 5th grade pod. You'll note that the stairwells are pretty narrow. I don't know if that's indicative of the time that this building was built, but you can see that Brian and I, just the two of us, took up pretty much the whole width of the stairwell. Imagine a whole host of middle school students with their backpacks, their music instruments. It makes for a little bit of an intense situation. This is...
Hey, Shannon, what's this over here? Why is there a printer in the hallway?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you pointed that out. The first time I ever toured this part of the building, I had that very same question. When this building was constructed in the 70s, pod-style classrooms, open classrooms were very in vogue, and it was just the beginning of that style of construction. What wasn't in vogue at the time was to have a number of electrical outlets in the room. So this is actually here because there's not enough electrical outlets or network ports to house it any other place. So this printer serves all of these classrooms here.
That's shocking. What's also surprising is the size of these lockers. I've seen my kids' backpacks. They're bigger than this locker. This is kind of unusual, don't you think?
Right. So what's interesting about these lockers, and we can take a look at the newer section of AMS, which is approaching around 20 years old, I think. And you'll note that the lockers there are much wider than this. These lockers, even when they're kept very neat and tidy, I've come through here during the day when kids' things are in them and they can't close them because they literally can't fit their backpack, their books, their musical instrument, and they don't even bring their snow gear to AMS. They don't even bring it because it doesn't fit. You can see, not very wide. And if you'll take a look, this one's empty right now, but imagine it during the day. You're not gonna fit much in here. And then imagine multiple children crowded around during a brief passing period. Many of these locks no longer work. But my understanding from administration is that's actually not a problem because they need to leave them open anyway because they can't close them and fit all the stuff in them. So if you'll take a look in here, this is one of our spaces that our educators can use for intervention. So if a student is having a hard time and needs a little one-on-one, this is a room that you would come to maybe gather yourself, have a little quiet time. I do think it probably is quiet.
Well, it's about 4.5 feet by 6, so I don't think you can do much else in here.
It's pretty small. I would say the lighting is...
This in theory feels like a jail cell. This is about the size of a jail cell.
Yeah.
And this is where we educate kids.
This is making the most of what we have, right? Yeah, this is where we've arrived with just the students we have today. Not even talking about any potential growth. This is where we are. We're using closets for intervention space because that time and that intervention time is so important and it's needed. But this is really the only space we have. So now we're in a 5th grade classroom. And remember how I said they had the
Hold on. It's really warm.
It is really warm in here. It's very warm in here.
It's 10 degrees, if not more, cooler outside than it is in here. Like,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, the kids in this classroom all day, where it's like, it feels like 100 degrees in here.
Yeah, you're right. This is a homeroom type classroom, so this is a class that would have students in it throughout the day. It's not an in and out kind of classroom. It's more of a homeroom classroom. And the temperature fluctuations in all the buildings across the district, and this one included, are a big problem. There are some very real HVAC situations that we need to rectify. My understanding in talking with some of the folks on these building tours is it's not even a matter of the district's not trying to fix the problem. It's a matter of these systems are so old that finding replacement parts is nearly impossible. So we know we're coming up on some big fixes any way we look at it. So wait, I want to tell you though, because you asked me about the printer in the hall, I want you to take a look at this room. This wall.
I was just going to ask about these walls. They look fake.
Right, so this is not a real wall. This was the very favorite in the early 70s, and at the time it was, you know, very cool. This is a movable wall. So it's an accordion style wall. It opens up to the next classroom, but it obviously has no electrical outlets. So this cinder block wall here has really the only outlets that you're going to get in the whole room.
You've got two, 3 outlets in this whole room.
In the whole room. You'll notice over here on this wall, which is also a movable wall.
Now, how often do they open these walls so that they can use the joint classrooms?
So I think there's times when if there's a teacher out and one teacher's watching both classrooms for a little bit of time, they may open that. This particular wall doesn't lock though, so if you're in a situation where you have a lockdown, you can't actually lock this wall. The other issue with these walls, I don't know if you see how they're bowing.
Yes.
We're going to need to replace these at some point. They're very costly. Replacing this wall with another costly wall like this still isn't going to solve the challenges that our teachers face with this type of wall. There's no acoustical separation, okay? So if I'm in this classroom and I'm trying to lead my students in a very interactive lesson, and the classroom next to me is taking a quiz, you see the problem there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. A cinder block's going to provide a lot of soundproofing, but I mean, these look like fairly flimsy walls that there's no enclosure, right?
Right. So we're still in the original wing of the building.
And it's cold in here, let me tell you.
Yeah, and now we're cold. You see the jackets are on. What's going on here?
Yeah, this is a radiator that is apparently older than me. It's blowing cold air, and you also look at the windows here, and you look at the discoloration. So the seals on these windows are blown, which means that the energy efficiency from this window is shot. So in theory, our Amherst resident tax dollars are going right outside that window. I also understand that there's outside airflow coming directly in underneath this unit, and what I've come to learn is that this particular room is flooded several times. It's flooded because this unit continues to freeze, and as it freezes, the pipes burst, and therefore it floods this room. And they typically happen over long weekends or holidays. Well, it'd be easy to fix if you had parts. The problem is these units are so old they don't make the parts to fix them anymore. So the school's been doing the best they can with shoestrings and chewing gum to do it, and you can see they've used some taping here to kind of cover up some of the seals. But even like the light switch or the on and off switch, they've just duct taped. It's just duct tape there to make sure it doesn't fall because it's broken so many times, but they don't have parts to replace it.
To the classroom next door.
What I've learned about this classroom is that this classroom is really hot. In fact, we'll go to the other side. You notice it's open because this is so hot and this is so cold. We've got to create airflow so that this radiator doesn't freeze tonight. But if we go through the other side, can't even get through the other side.
Watch out, you're about to take the wall with you. Okay, there we
If you
go.
come in here, it's
Oh my
it's
gosh.
like 80 degrees in here.
Well,
It's
so
80
you can
degrees
see
in
the
here.
flag blowing, and that there is clearly heat. There's definitely, this is hot.
That is.
But this is running all the time to keep that room from freezing?
Yeah, so since this room doesn't properly blow air or even create hot air, we've got to run this unit so high and continuous to create airflow to go to the other room. So the other room's probably close to 60, maybe even lower, and this room's probably close to 80. And if you look around the rooms, they don't have thermostats on them. So the only way that they can regulate the heat is to overheat one space to compensate for the lack of heat in the other.
So I'm here in room 12 at AMS, and what I've come to learn is that this is, in theory, one of the coldest, if not the coldest room in the building. And what you'll notice here is a space heater. If you've ever had to call somebody because you've had a disaster at your house, these are the units they bring in. This unit's here all the time. And as I stand here, just in the proximity of this, it's still in the 30s outside. It feels like it's in the 30s inside. I mean, my legs through jeans are cold standing next to this. And over here, I've got a space heater. And this, I understand, will be turned on later to make sure that this room and this unit doesn't freeze tonight. You'll notice when we were in the other room, the American flag was fluttering in the breeze. There is no fan, there's no airflow here whatsoever. So not only do we not create heat here, we have no blowers here to move the air around, which is why this unit's here. Since we have no heat, that's why this unit's here. And this is how we keep this particular room heated. So, Shannon, where exactly are we now? Because there's not a window in here.
So right now, this room is currently being used for a foreign language class. What's interesting, though, to note about this space is, the windowless classroom is a really tough thing to think about your kids spending time in all day. So right now, it is a foreign language, so the kids aren't in the classroom all day. They do cycle in and out. The teacher's in here all day. But next year, a year from now, as our class sizes are larger in these lower grades, this is one of the spaces that potentially would be flexed, this special put on a cart potentially, and this room turned into a homeroom, separate from the other homerooms in the grade, because that's where we are with space in this building. There aren't any empty classrooms to move into. So now we're in the, students know it as the Innovation and Design Lab when they're here during the school day, and our community members may be more familiar with this space as the Maker Space, which is a space that folks can use to come in and use different power tools and things that we have here. But there's some challenges with this room, Brian. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, when we first walk in, you notice this is a heater for this space, and you'll notice the electrical panel's open, and there's a ladder over here because this it's broken. And again, this is another unit that they can't find parts for, so they're trying to actually create some parts here to potentially fix and replace this. But what's more concerning to me is the door out here. So this is the door.
It's really cold.
It's very
you can
cold
definitely
in this
feel the
room. Notice I
draft.
still have my coat on. You can actually see light through the crack in that door. And
Wow.
if you get over to the bottom left-hand side, you'll see where all of this is corroding. All this is cement behind here. It's falling apart. It's breaking off. You can see all this rubble it's eroding beneath us. So what I understand too is that this is where a lot of rodents come in from outside. And if you pan upward, you'll see all ceiling tiles where they need access, whether there was for electrical short issues or some HVAC issues that have gone through here and some water damage as well. So this is just another fine example of some of the challenges that this school continues to face.
So now we're in the girls' locker room at Amherst Middle School. In 2013, we did replace the gym floors and the bleachers, but this locker room is freezing.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the coldest room we've been in so far.
Right, and I don't think it's because the heater's turned off. I think it's because it's not functioning.
Yeah, it looks like the heater up here, and what I've now been told, has been broken for several years. I mean, there's parts missing. Apparently they can't find parts to replace to even fix or repair this. And I'm cold standing here in a shirt, an undershirt, and a jacket, and I couldn't imagine
Getting changed for gym class.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, I was just having that same thought.
Like when you get out of bed in the morning and you're freezing cold, this is worse. This is cold.
It's cold. So I feel like the takeaway for me and really walking around these buildings and talking about some of the challenges is, number one, we don't have the space in this building to fully, execute the curriculum in the way that we would like to with the students we have today, let alone if any extra students come. But two, the second thing that I'm really feeling is that even just to maintain this building, because some of these systems are so old and so dated, we're looking at a big spend, right?
We're looking at a big spend, but
because the Band-Aids aren't working anymore.
Well, we're spending a ton of money to just be adequate to today. I mean, the amount of money that we're wasting on heating costs is significant. We're throwing that money out the windows with all the heat that goes with it, and we're here in the middle of February. What I understand, these spaces in the September-October timeframe where it's pretty warm, and obviously the May-June timeframe where it's pretty warm again, it gets really hot in these spaces, and we don't have HVAC for those as well. So we've got it on both ends. So it sounds like we've got maybe 2 or 3 months of the year where there's really comfortable environments for kids to go to school from just a temperature perspective.
Sure.
That's less than half the year.